1, check 2. There we go. What's going on, everybody? Where am I? Here I am. What's going on, everybody? We're going to get the show started in just a second. Just a little pre-show to say hi. You are listening to Feeding the Ducks, our favorite stock-free, royalty-free stock music that comes with the streaming software. It's a jam. It's a bop. It slaps. All the things the kids are saying these days. What's going on? We got Psalm 40 in the chat. We got Jonathan F. in the chat. Who else is here? Sir Dylan, Night of the Wailing Avians is here. Marty, not Sir K, in the house. Okay, there we go. A little bit of a funky day today. A little bit late. Sorry about that. But I was answering the call. A friend that I have who has a young baby needed some help. I got to be Uncle Basil for a few hours there, and now we're back making it happen. And we'll see. Lord willing, the creek don't rise. We'll see how the show goes. But remember, it is a call-in show. You'll see down there in the description of the show, wherever you're watching it, description says call-in link. Click on that. That's what you got to do to call in. And you got to call in. What's even the point if you don't call in? I mean, seriously, what's the point? You don't need to have some sort of incredible theory or question or whatever. You can just call and say hi, and we'll let the Lord lead the conversation. That's what we're doing today. I know I say that that's what we do, and especially the past few episodes where I've had almost no plan for what to do, and it turns out great. The Lord's doing great things. That is the case today, and maybe more so today than ever before. Or maybe it just feels like this before every show. Oops. All right. We're going to get the show started. This is the pre-show. You know how this works. I'm going to put up some art. I'm going to play a little jingle. That's going to tell Gons that the show is officially starting. Once again, down in the description, check out that call-in link. You're just going to click on that link. It'll ask you a couple questions. It'll open up in your browser. Then you'll be put into a back room where you can watch and listen to the show. You hang out there, and I bring you up on stage when the time comes. So that should be that the back room should be filling now. That's why I'm saying now. Okay. Let's get the show started. No need to jibber jabber too much, because any gibbering and jabbering should be part of the show. Here's this. Here's the jingle. Let's go.
Called it. We got a caller. We got a caller on the line here.
What's going on, buddy? Razzle dazzle. I'm your best buddy, Basil. I said, what's up, buddy? What's up, everybody? Everybody. Oh, there's some branding right there. I don't know exactly, but we're going to write that one down. Not everybody, but everybody. That's going to look good on a thumbnail someday. Very on brand. Everybody. Oh, that's good. Okay, there we go. Starting out the show with a little bit of genius. Shout out to everybody who's coming in live. Link made it to the Rumble. Psalm 40, Caretaker Dan. Jonathan F is here. TLA Jr. What's going on? Okay, cool. Big shout out to everybody who got the text message today. Let's see. I'm going to check some text messages real quick. Just taking. Oh. Okay. Okay. I think this might be something not to be read on the show. It looks like perhaps a little secret message about a very special Canarian. And I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to say I got the message there. 417. I see that. If I shouldn't be doing that, you just let me know. Let me know what kind of action I should take. Let's see here. 940 says, someday I'll finally have time and courage to call in. Love this show. God bless you, 940. Thank you very much. 423 texts and says, everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. Thank you for asking. I mean, it's just kind of how it is. Anybody who's like tuned in to the Canary Cry family the past few weeks. It's a weird time. It's a tough time. It's a changing of the seasons. Things are just weird and difficult for all of us. You know how it is. That's why we do this show, because certainly going through the news sometimes doesn't help. Okay, let me think about this. I was going to say there used to be, but I think it's still true. So I don't think this is past tense. But I once had a buddy who is not a Christian fellow, not a guy who's really paying attention to the news, so all of his ideas about what's going on around the world are just sort of very default, right? I don't blame him for that. It's very default. And I mentioned my buddy Kyle. So last episode I mentioned my buddy Kyle. When we were like 13, 14, somewhere around there, he saw Zeitgeist, and he showed me Zeitgeist, and he was kind of like my first friend who was kind of questioning what was going on here, man. But he was also expressly atheist, but like atheist in the like 13 or 14-year-old way, where maybe a little precocious, maybe a little, doesn't really understand all of it, but just like it's cool to be atheist, and the Bible wasn't written by Jesus, so yeah, well, it wasn't written until after Jesus died. I'm like, yeah, that's what you can't write about somebody's death before they're dead. Anyways, so that kind of thing. Anyways, he and I, this was a few years ago, we're chatting back and forth. He was in town, and my other buddy was there. So it's me and Kyle talking about conspiracy theory stuff, talking about, the weirdo, getting deep like you do. And my other buddy's there, and he's just kind of sitting back. You can tell he's kind of like, he's not engaging. He's just kind of listening. He doesn't really know anything we're talking about. We're talking about the Fed. We're talking about and when there was a pause in the conversation, this buddy goes, does it make you feel good to know all this? Like, does it make you feel good to know all the weird stuff going on behind the scenes, to like pay attention to the news, to know what's going on? And he had this sort of incredulousness in his voice. And I thought for a second, I said, yeah, actually I do. It gives me a sense of maybe not power, but like gives me a sense of, like I've got a grip. And things aren't, even though they might be totally out of my hands, I see them. I'm not ignorant of them. In fact, you do get a little bit of power in that you can arrange your life in a way that makes sense. You can hold your values. I'd say more than anything, it helps you hold your values, because if you're just drifting along the mainstream secular sort of way you're supposed to think, and things you're supposed to believe in, and whatever, how you're supposed to feel about whoever's in the president or whatever, you're not in control of the world, and like in control of destiny, but you're not even in control of your own mind. You don't have control of your own emotions. You don't have control of how you are responding to the stimulus that is coming at you. Because even if you don't pay attention to the news, even if you don't care, and here's the thing, I say this because it is quite clear that many, many, many people who have been super engaged since COVID, through the election, maybe they woke up during those times and they really got into it, and they've been following along, and there's an exhaustion, there's a fatigue that is settled on a lot of people. And it's not just our people, it's people across the board. I'm listening to, other podcasters or whatever, other people with these sort of communities, and they're all saying the same thing. And that is, wow, they'll start by complaining about how numbers are down or something, but what they eventually come to is like, everybody's just exhausted. They're too exhausted to pay attention to every headline. They're too exhausted. And this is partially because, the narrative crafting of the mainstream is what feeds the alternative media or the independent media. If there was not that mainstream to, critique or bounce off of, much of alt media and independent media wouldn't really have a whole lot to talk about. And so the mainstream media knows this, and we've tracked this. We've tracked this down and pointed it out plenty of times where the mainstream media is just sort of whipping up a narrative, whipping up a series of stories, whipping up an argument or something like that, specifically because they know that they're the ones feeding the alt and independent media. And a lot of the folks, even a lot of our folks, but a lot of folks across the board have been successfully fatigued out of paying attention and fatigued into tuning out or to tuning off and to focus on smaller things, just things in their life, just going to work, paying the bills, you know. And in this state, there's some people who have tuned out altogether. There's another group of people who have tuned out except for like in an entertainment value way, almost like in a junk food way, where alt media, independent media, maybe they're not really necessarily progressing in their views of understanding what's going on. They're just sort of following along the hullabaloo as if it were an episodical TV show. And I see this a lot with like the Candace Owens thing. Maybe even Nick Fuentes, but really a great example of this is the Candace Owens thing, who at this point, Candace Owens and her life and her show has basically become like a drama, like a thriller almost. She's talking about how she's getting closer to the truth and she's digging, she's found out, oh, Erica's involved, TPUSA's involved, Egypt's involved, Israel's involved. Like it just goes and goes and goes and goes. And now and it comes to like, oh no, now they're after me. They want to assassinate me. I gotta disappear. I gotta stop the show for this week. And it's just coming out. It's like these dramatic episodes of a TV show. And a lot of people are tuning into Candace. Most people who are doing anything are paying attention to Candace. She has the top podcast in the world right now, surpassing Joe Rogan and blah, 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 and it's a lot of people tuning in for the same thing every time. And the same thing is some wild new thing that Candace has figured out. Now she needs to go into hiding because they're trying to kill her. Right. And so there's two groups. We have people who are just tuning out altogether. We have another group of people who are tuning out, but tuning in for the exciting episode of Candace, for the entertainment purposes. And I've talked about sort of entertainment maybe not awakening, but like entertainment conspiracy. A lot of people, and we all do and have in different periods, really tuned into conspiracy stuff. Mostly it's just like intellectual entertainment. I think a lot of people found us that way with Canary Cry Radio, just kind of like, oh, let's listen to figure out what's going on with aliens or figure out what's going on with the Nephilim and do it all in a biblical worldview. And it's not necessarily day-to-day required actionable material, but it's kind of this broad, it's gives you something to think about, helps you make some connections. But the majority of the, alt media industry, for the most part, especially the sort of bigger guys, it's daily headlines every day, every single day of the week. They got to come on, whatever the news is, they got to follow along and they got to comment on and they got to figure it out and they got to get worked up about it. And God bless them. I couldn't do every day. Even just doing it twice a week like we do is exhausting. But more than that, you got to start finding things that people care about. That's why it was hilarious yesterday, Wednesday. The biggest news story in the world was the raccoon who broke into a Virginia liquor store, got drunk, and passed out in the bathroom. The biggest story in the world. And you go, well, who cares? I mean, who cares about that? Everybody cared about it. You look at the Google Analytics about the drunk raccoon. The drunk raccoon was the #1 top search story that day. And every show across the board was talking about the drunk raccoon. It was not on our list. It was not on our list to do for the show yesterday. But right as we started the show, I think it was Caleb. Caleb was like, "Are you going to talk about the drunk raccoon?" And I wasn't going to, but I pulled it up and, we had some fun with it at the beginning. But what does that say? What it says is the drunk raccoon, which is essentially a story about nothing except for fun and cute animals. Of course, that always helps. But it had almost zero political importance, had almost zero conspiratorial importance. Although, if I do say so myself, I think I had a pretty good take, with the chimeras and the Nephilim and the CIA. I think maybe I should have won an award for that story. But it was so important to the news cycle yesterday because it was something that wasn't so exhausting to hear about or so exhausting to think about. And I think that's where a lot of us are. And for Gons and I, for us right now, I'm like, hey, man, we're also struggling to keep up even just emotionally. But what does that mean? Are we supposed to totally change something? I don't think so. There's no plans to changing a whole lot, but I think people, I think you guys understand what I'm talking about. I think you understand where I am. So go back to my buddy who asked if, you know, if 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 I found paying attention to this stuff sort of helpful or nice or pleasant way to live. And I earnestly told him yes, because I really do. I mean, it's really nice to me. But I look around and I listen to other guys and gals and I watch what's going on with the numbers, not even ours, just like everybody's. I'm like, yeah, we're really getting into fatigue. We're coming up. We're moving into wintertime. The days are getting shorter. Days are getting colder. Going to bed earlier, hopefully, and you should be too. And I find myself not just fatigued sort of in an intellectual way, but fatigued just literally. I am dying over here, guys, and I know a lot of you guys are too. And I think we should consider this sort of spiritually, consider this in the spiritual realm, consider this in the seasons that God moves and history moves in. Who was it? Modern Day Bible Study mentioned this, I think last episode or a couple episodes ago, that that's just where we're at. That's just where we're at. And it's probably good that we take advantage of that. Now, does that make the most exciting glide up for a podcast? I'm not really sure. But the hope is, at least here on this show, we can kind of figure that out together. And I would love to hear anybody's suggestions or thoughts about any of that. Oh, I just remembered. Okay, just for today's, just so we know what's going on today, in about an hour and a half, there is a local politics meeting that I have been invited to attend. Now, I have not guaranteed my attendance to this thing, but we're going to see what the Lord does with this show. And if everything seems to go that way, I'll be probably jamming out of here in about an hour. Okay. I know it's funny. I say that all the time. This is a hilarious joke that we could possibly keep the show down, to an hour or under. But that is in the wings. We're going to see what happens. And if it feels right, we'll do that. We'll all go take a nap and I'll jam off and go get involved with rural local politics. It'll be fun. Okay, we do have a caller hanging out in the waiting room. And remember, you should be too, folks. Call in. Let me know what you think. Are you tired? Are you fatigued? Are you exhausted? Are you worked up? Is it good? Are you whatever? Let me know. I really want to know what you guys are thinking about this, because it doesn't help for me to think that I have some sort of insight that isn't reflected in the feelings of people. So look in the description of this video. You'll see it wherever you're watching it. Look in the description. There is a call-in link, and you click that, answer a couple questions, and then you'll be put in the waiting room. All right, I'm going over to the X account, and I'm posting the call-in link there because I am recalling that X does not do the same thing that I want it to do. So in the first comment, I'll put the call-in link. Call-in link. Boom. Just in case there's anybody over on X. I'm not sure if there is, but yeah, there's some people. All right. Well, we got Psalm 40 sitting here in the waiting room. I'm going to bring you up on stage, Mr. Psalm 40. Here we go. Check one. How you doing, Psalm 40?
Hey, what's up, man?
Hanging in there, Sir Psalm 40. Sorry about that, buddy. What's going on? What's on your mind today?
Well, the first comment I have, you were talking about just like how theatrical that Candace, I guess, is acting.
Uh-huh.
I only really know these people like peripherally, like either through like, you or a handful of other people. Like I think Sean Ryan, sometimes Rogan, and recently only sometimes Tucker do I actually take the time to listen to these people.
Yeah.
But like, other than that, I don't listen to anyone. But anyway, the way that you made it sound, it kind of reminded me of like back when AJ first started. I don't know
Not
if you remember, but like it was really the Bohemian Grove thing, which like really blew him up.
right.
And then I remember for a while after that, I can't remember like the setting, like either he was a guest on other shows or something. But I remember him telling this story several times about how like people were chasing him like out of the woods. Like he was telling the story of his visit to Bohemian Grove, I guess. But it was such a wild story. Like they chased him miles on foot
Uh,
outside of this place, and he was climbing fences and running through yards, and it was a real elaborate story. And yeah, Candace just really reminded me of that when you were talking about it. And I did not know that she surpassed Rogan, and I guess apparently the telepathy tapes.
yeah. Oh, yeah. This was maybe a week or so ago. I don't know if it's stayed that way, but yeah, she became number one in the world, and I mean, good for her. That thing kind of bumps around a little bit, but it's very interesting because she literally, okay, so she has a couple things that she focuses on. Number one is Charlie Kirk, and it's really interesting. I don't really watch everything she does, but I'll like pop around to just kind of do some research and watch her clips and things like that. For her, it's very interesting, and I think this is why it works for her, because she was kind of close to Charlie, and she's kind of worked with TPUSA, and so she comes in with these new developments and it's all personal stuff. Like it's all, one of his friends texted me and sent this. Oh, and somebody else texted me and sent this. And here's some of my texts with Charlie, and this, and I've looked into this, and blah blah blah. So it's all like coming at her. It's all a story of her doing the research, or her coming across the secrets or something, which is interesting, and still on it. We're 3 months out, and it's basically the only thing she talks about, with the exception of the Bridget Macron thing is kind of her other big one. And the fact that she's being sued by the government of France in American courts, again, makes it extremely personal. Like she can tell this story from her side of like, I figured it out. Bridget Macron's a man. And look, they're suing me. Here's the updates on them suing me. Here's the updates on my da da da. So it really comes, whether she means to do it or not. I think she is. She's a smart person. She knows what she's doing. But it's very much like watching a very thrilling episodical, where there's actually stakes. That's one thing that she has with these stories that very rarely do other people have, is like real stakes. For her, she was friends with Charlie. She was da 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 da. This is all. It all has stakes, and now they want to kill her. The stakes are high. She has these assassination plans, and then same with Bridget McCrone. Oh, I figured this out, and da da da, and now there's stakes. They're suing me, so I have to be right. I'm taking them down. It's extremely high stakes. It's very entertaining, and while everybody else's numbers are dwindling across the board. People are just tuning out. Everybody's complaining about, downloads and stuff like that, except for her, who is like the only person growing. And I fear what this will create for those who chase algorithms, for those who rely on download numbers for advertising dollars, for those whose sustenance and, to sustain themselves, they need big numbers, which thank God we don't need. We don't need bigger numbers to survive, but other people do. Um, my fear is that other, especially sort of bigger shows, will realize, oh, we need to get personal stakes. We need to make this more of like a thriller, like an episodical. We need to start doing this. And not that anybody would necessarily lie, but that you can frame things to make it very high stakes for you. Say things vaguely or whatever, or perhaps even put yourself in sort of danger, just to give it those stakes. Because that's very clearly the only way that anybody who relies on big numbers is going to be able to get those or even keep those.
I was gonna ask you, do you think that these numbers are even real then? Like, do you really think that like Rogan is understandable because he's culturally appropriate and a lot of people relate to him? Telepathy tapes was a phenomenon that I guess could be believable, but this theatrical Candace Owens, I'm sure she does have faithful listeners that believe in what she says. But do we really believe that numbers are like that? That this
Yeah,
many people are really buying into this?
I can't. I don't even really believe our numbers. Like, our numbers don't make any sense.
Well, that's the point. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Like
right.
someone could just be typing those numbers in.
Yeah, or bots or whatever. Yeah, and not only, as far as that goes, it doesn't even have to be YouTube necessarily faking it. I think there are obvious times, we know for a fact that there are obvious times that YouTube messes with people's numbers. My suspicion is that they kind of mess with our numbers specifically um for morale purposes, to like try to low morale us out of continuing to do what we do. Um, the other side of that is, very obvious things like bot farms. You've got international, we've got international near peer foes, China, Russia, who have warehouses filled with people who just sit there on X and are coordinating for, intelligence purposes, for demoralization campaigns, for, fifth generation warfare. And it's very possible that there's some, Russia or China or whoever, whoever would want to do this is, yeah, sort of artificially hyping up Candace Owens and her style and her thing for some reason. Again, could be demoralization, could be to whip up Americans into sort of a conspiracy frenzy, to make, things a little bit more manipulatable. It could be really anything. But yeah, it's tough. I have to remind myself pretty much every day not to trust any of the numbers that we see. It's easy not to trust our numbers because they just don't logically make sense, from how many people we talk to every day, how many people support us, how many people are interacting with us in ways that other shows don't really have. Um, but yeah, that's a good point. It's all an illusion. Or it's all so easily could be an illusion that we should treat it like an illusion. I think maybe that's another good piece of advice for, for a lot of things in life. There are certain areas of life or reality or things around us that would so easily be manipulated or be an illusion, and there are so many parties who would benefit from that illusion being taken seriously, that it's almost better to assume most things are illusory, and things would come out better for you. You'd be less, manipulatable, controllable.
Yeah, I'm also kind of reminded of the situation with Sean Ryan, and
Yeah,
it was the Tesla guy, right?
right.
Yeah,
Totally.
he could have hopped on that, kept milking that, like Candace is milking Charlie, like
Totally.
almost maybe he was handed an opportunity and he made a different decision.
And that's really what happened with Sean Ryan. I know that Sean Ryan was around, but what blew my mind is by the time I had even heard his name, and I professionally have to kind of pay attention to who's out there, what's going on, this kind of stuff. By the time I had even heard his name, he had 3 million subscribers. And the fact that I had not even heard of him until he had 3 million subscribers is highly suspicious. Not that he didn't exist or that he wasn't doing anything, but to go from Basil's never heard of him to 3 million subscribers is just like very odd. That's never happened before. I don't even know how that could happen. And then, of course, lo and behold, turns out he is CIA and is currently in communication with FBI. And, once you're in CIA and FBI, you're never actually out of it. But it was at that moment he had those personal stakes where, hey, the Cybertruck guy emailed me. He sent me the thing. And it was that personal stakes exclusive that really kind of blew him up. Suddenly everybody knew what was going on. So I could totally see the, let's say, encouragement to, if not manufacture some sort of personal stakes, but act in a way that would cause some personal stakes for your show or your brand or whatever, which makes it an extremely powerful tool. I mean, an extremely sort of emotional hook to have such high stakes like that. It's very interesting, man.
It is the whole like I guess it would be the evolution of media really is
Yeah,
kind of fascinating. Like I was just thinking earlier about like this whole idea of communities with podcasts is a pretty fairly new idea. Like post pandemic, like
right,
I mean, it's beyond like a comment section. There really was no communication between the audience or really anybody except for
right.
one-way communication from the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole evolution of socialization, I guess,
Yeah,
is pretty fun to watch.
it's very interesting to watch, and I highly recommend this be something that people really kind of start paying attention to, because you're right. Um, oh, what was the word for it? I heard a great analysis on it lately. Oh, the long and short of it is that with social media and with podcasting now being so big, like it's so the saturation of podcasts has now reached a level where it's possible for this to happen. Um, and we see it intergenerationally, and it's one of the crazy things about Gen Alpha now, and why things like 6-7 and Labubu and all this crazy stuff is going on. I heard it in the context of Gen Alpha, but I think it applies broadly to everybody, and that is the idea of sharing a culture with even the rest of the people in your town. Like it used to be, before, let's go back to like 2008 or something. The culture was really only split between like Fox News and say CNBC or something. Like the the access point for information was so broadly shared that it was possible to actually live in a similar reality to the other people around you. But because of social media, and I think by extension, podcasts, it is so rare to be able to find someone around you who is even in the same dimension of narrative. And it's not even just like, oh, you're a leftist or you're right or you're Democrat, you're Republican. Like that's old school. That society could still work with just those two things. But because most people, I'll say most younger people and too many people uh, are spending 4, 5, 6 hours scrolling online, and they're all living in a digital reality that is created for them personally by algorithms. In a sense, you almost won't, if you're in that state where you are pretty much everything you know about the world, you're getting through scrolling 4 to 5, 6 hours a day, you will inherently basically share your reality and all of its details with literally no one. You will, if you're leaving it up to the algorithms, which most people do, they'll leave it up to the algorithms. Um, you are literally living in a different dimension, and this could be as broad as thinking all Republicans are Nazis or all Democrats are Antifa or something like that's a broad example, but even down to teeny tiny details of what's a good example? Uh, I don't know. Even like how the
Genders,
out what's that?
genders.
Genders, and I'd say that's another big one. But even down to how the algorithm works. Like a lot of people think like, oh, the algorithm just shows you what you want to see. Like that's it. Our realities are created because it's what we want to see. It's because we looked at something, we clicked on something. It's just a reflection of what, there's a lot of people that think that's just how the algorithms work. And so when they come into contact with somebody with different algorithms, and then they're just assuming, oh, this person looks and clicks on different things, but it's really not that way at all. That's kind of the PR of the social media companies and stuff. It's a way for them, as usual, the elites trying to put the blame of somebody's experience onto them. But the reality is, tons of your algorithm has nothing to do what you clicked on, what you watch. That certainly plays a part, but we know this with some, pretty diabolical schemes in the pornography industry. There was a big expose on like Pornhub, not to get blue here for anybody, but that and then this extends out to everybody's algorithm, but this is where it was sort of revealed um, or concretized that, yeah, you actually, a ton of your content that you come across is nudging. It's social nudging. It's somebody at the top wanting to push an agenda of one kind or another. And so purposefully nudging, and that can be as something as sort of sinister as pornography, but all the way down to, whatever, what you think happened on Thanksgiving. And they can totally erase any version of reality from your feed and nudge an entirely new, oftentimes invented reality. But you're looking at it 4 or 5 hours a day for X amount of days, you don't even think to yourself that any other possibility. Anyways, getting kind of heady now, but back to the point, which is we're in this time where most people share almost no shared consensus reality with many people around them. And then podcasts kind of come along, and instead of sitting and scrolling all day, lots of people will, if they're video people, sit and watch a podcast, a live podcast with 100, 1,000 other people. And suddenly you actually are sharing a little slice of reality with a bunch of people. And then, of course, maybe you don't watch it live, but you tune in. And it's like this very rare moment on the internet. And it has to be long form. The long form is very important, that it's you're spending a couple hours not just learning and thinking and whatever, but actually participating in a shared reality. Um, and I think that's a big reason, COVID was a huge breakdown for shared reality or consensus reality. Um, but I think that's why podcasts are, I mean, they're so important and they're so unique in that, gosh, people just really want to find someone else who they have any, vision of reality in common with. And that's why I think that's a big reason why Christendom is finding such a revival right now, because having an agreed upon reality with people, and with Christianity, it's especially effective because it's thousands of years old and it's, more or less everywhere around the globe. It's this very unique opportunity, a total revolutionary idea for especially a lot of young people to, oh, actually, I can find a way to at least agree upon some things that are real, with lots of people on sort of a long-term basis, because Christianity is a lot of things. One thing it also is a lifestyle. You change your life, you orient your actions, you orient your values in a certain way. And suddenly you do that, you find yourself having a lot in common with a lot of people. And that's something that's been throughout history very important, very unifying, of course. There's lots of peace comes from that. But it's not something you're going to get if you are just floating down the secular default way of life these days. You are fully a puppet to whatever, they want to, whatever little subset of illusory reality they want to keep you in, because they make you more controllable. And that's why, Christianity is such a threat to sort of, yeah, the broad, not even just secular, but oftentimes like straight up satanic beast system default reality. Um, yeah, I think that's why. And I think something's going on. And I think that's why the fatigue, again, this fatigue syndrome that a lot of people are getting from being locked in on certain podcasts and stuff. I really think that this is a very elegantly executed plan from like mainstream narrative crafters, setting a series of events and headlines, knowing that alt and independent media has to follow it because it's the business model. And, just this sort of magic spell that is putting a lot of people, draining a lot of people of energy. And they got to find ways to get that back. And I would love to try to find a way that that's something we could do as a community. Because if we're not, if we're not holding on to what value we get from something like this, and finding ways to do it, it's could very easily be the case that uh, many communities will just like get fatigued to death.
For
'Cause-
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I've taken up a lot of time, but
No, no. Yeah, thank you.
one
Nobody else has called in, by the
uh,
way. If anybody else wants to call in, you should do that. But yeah, I don't want to
there
hold you
was
up. Got stuff
there
going on.
was one last thing.
Oop, did I lose you?
um, The Melissa. No, I'm here. You hear me?
There we go. Now you're back.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
A while ago, the Truth Stream folks, they released a video about a specific Bilderberg meeting, and it was like maybe 2017, 2018. It was pre-pandemic, but one of the topics of the meeting was the post-truth era,
Yeah.
and I think that that's super relevant because it was like I can't remember the details of it, but part of it involved like just flooding the information overload. So, there are certain things that people want to know and they expect their government to be transparent. So, if you want to appears, if you're giving them that, like an actual good politician or leader, you just flood the information. And that
Totally.
way no one knows what is true and what isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, I was just searching that thing right now to see if I could find something on Melissa's page. But yeah, that was a big part of Obama's post-presidential talking tour he also went on. This was, 2016, 17, somewhere around there. There's some pretty famous clips of him talking about it, talking about flooding the whatever social media with raw sewage, and suddenly nobody knows what's true. And of course, that was scary when he said it then, but even crazier now with AI and fifth generation warfare units all over the world uh, picking up, even our own psyop military units putting out recruitment videos basically saying the same thing. Yeah, and it's one of those things, much like Christianity, much like Christendom. There has to be uh, a shared search for truth and like passion for truth, and not just a shared interest in Candace Owens's next crazy detail of her lawsuit or something like that. Again, it's really spooky, but I'm so grateful that the precise problems that are being purposefully perpetrated on everybody today are exactly the strength of something like Christendom or Christianity has, if we could just grasp onto it, if we could just realize it and stay focused.
Yeah, it is important to have that community. Like I mean, it was one of the first things that I realized. I was always like a bit of a loner, but I think I like subconsciously yearned some kind of a camaraderie because um, I was in the army for a little bit and I always kind of had a hard time maintaining relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, when I like started actually taking the Bible seriously, that was one of the first things that I noticed is that yes, there's a time to be alone, but like the point is to not be alone. Like we're called to be together,
Yeah,
and it's not good for the man to be alone. That's why woman was created in the first place.
yeah, yeah,
That
totally.
also sparks another thought real quick.
Oh,
Sharp,
oh,
sharp
bro.
turn here. But it's not good for the man to be alone. Even though on the seventh day God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. I just had that thought earlier today.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
nothing bad happened between Adam and Eve. So if it was good, why was it not good for him to be alone?
Yeah, I mean, and that's so. I mean, it's just an interesting detail you bring that up because, especially with younger people, but I'd say people across the board, the sort of dating age, or the not age, but the dating era, the dating uh, what's the word? Um,
Chapter?
yeah, I'm trying to, what the heck? Culture, I guess. Dating culture
Yeah, culture.
is so ludicrously twisted right now. You have Gen Z having less. I mean, it's funny. Millennials had less relationships until Gen Z, who has less relationships than them, and now Gen Alpha is just like, that's just it. They're just
Robot,
nobody.
robot
Yeah,
girlfriend.
yeah, right. Everybody's just robot girlfriend. That's when you have a lot of these young men who are just giving up entirely. I mean, an interesting side effect of, I think, the horrendous sort of dating culture, especially in younger people these days, is that I think we're seeing a lot of the young men turn to Christianity, partly as a reaction to the horrible dating culture. So maybe there can be like some sort of positive transformation to come from it. But yeah, I mean, it's clear that those in charge of the crafting the false realities just want nobody to get along with anybody, including romantically, because we can't have people having babies either. That would ruin the whole plan.
Yeah, I think dating culture's been screwed up since like World War II.
Yes,
Because
it's definitely been a long decline.
I came of age. I'm probably right between you and Gons. So like I came of age in the early 2000s, and I've never known a good dating culture.
No.
And like even back then, like people think that I guess porn probably is just continuously rising, but
Yeah.
like I think the sexual culture back then was way more wild. Maybe I'm just not seeing it the same way today, but like, we had the WWF and like, Woodstock 99 and like it was
Yeah.
pretty wild back then.
Yeah. No, totally. It's really funny you mentioned that because for some reason, the other night turned on Fiddler on the Roof. It was the one from like the 70s, like the old school movie Fiddler on the Roof, which has a lot of extremely entertaining bits about it concerning a lot of weird cultural shifts right now. But it did occur to me, perhaps arranged marriages weren't so bad. So we got to get back to arranged marriages. I think that's the only ways to save humanity, to save the species.
I guess I'm willing to try.
All right, buddy. Thanks for calling in, man. Really appreciate talking to you and hope to talk to you again.
Yes, sir. God bless. Take it
God,
easy.
God bless. Take it easy, buddy. Post Truth has its own Wikipedia. Says post, and the details are as what you think. Post Truth is a term that refers to widespread documentation of and concern about disputes over public truth claims in the 21st century. The term's academic development refers to theories and research that seek to explain the specific causes historically and the effects of the phenomenon. Oxford Dictionaries popularly defines it as relating to and denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. I would throw a dart at Oxford Dictionaries here. They're trying to give the impression that post truth is simply about people not paying attention to objective facts, where I think more particularly post truth is a problem because even the institutions who are supposed to give us the truth, supposed to operate in the realm of truth, have been caught over and over and over not doing that, lying about everything, obfuscating true facts. So it's not so much that truth people ignore truth. It's that it's impossible to discern the truth. And the organizations who would like to be the ones to be the ones passing out the truth and to be believed, thinking it's their job, have been caught too many times not doing that. And so I can even see in Oxford dictionaries uh, definition here is a post-truth definition meant to specifically uh, guide, again, put the onus on the post-truth issue onto individuals, saying, "Hey, you're post-truth because you don't believe the objective truth, not that nobody's giving you the truth." Again, making it sort of personal response, even personal responsibility is not even the right word for it, but saying, "Hey, we're the government. We've given you all the true facts, and you just choose not to believe it because you just go on emotion." No, Anyways, moving on. While the term was used in phrases like post-truth politics, academically and publicly before 2016, in 2016, the term was named Word of the Year by Oxford Dictionaries, okay, again, them, after the term's proliferation in the first election of President Trump in the United States and the Brexit referendum in the United Kingdom. Donald Trump has been characterized as engaging in a war on truth. He has been characterized, meaning somebody said this about Trump, that he isn't war on truth. Great. Thank you, Oxford Dictionaries. Further notes that post-truth was often used as an adjective to signal a distinctive kind of politics. Wow. There you go. The post-truthiness right there in the definition of post-truthiness, thanks to Wikipedia. Okay, we got another caller here. We got Roy B. Roy B, you're on the line. What's going on, buddy?
How you doing, brother? Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. What's on your mind?
All right. My best buddy Basil, I just wanted to say there's multiple things going on, and I think you're right when you say we're all being fed by the algorithms. It's an echo chamber, like you said. But the one thing I wanted to say about was what the last caller was talking about, the Charlie Kirk thing, the Candace Owens thing. When the Kirk murder happened, I thought, okay, you know what? This might indeed, for sure, cause all the Christian community to come together because they're so divided. Maybe this Charlie Kirk murder will actually say, hey, let's put our little differences aside and get together. Or then I thought to myself, maybe now is the time for the Christian community and the Jewish community to come together because before Charlie Kirk was killed, there was the attacks on the two staffers in D.C. Okay, right across from the three-letter building.
Talking about the
Uh,
National
the,
Guard attack or the
no,
Israeli
the
workers?
yeah, those Israeli workers in DC. That was a few months ago, and actually it was like a little while ago now. And then you had all the trans shootings against the little children and the Catholic Minnesota school. Then you had the trans killing before that in the Tennessee Covenant Church school, and so many. All right, from the trans community shooting up children and Christian stuff. And I thought, this Charlie Kirk thing has gotta make the Jewish community and the Christian community come together at least for mutual protection, which I found out about like the old series called Dog Fights in World War II. The planes would circle if they were by themselves, two of them. The World War II American pilots would go around in a circle to protect each other's 6 o'clock, if you will, for mutual protection against the Nazi Luftwaffe fighters coming at them. So that was a last ditch ploy to survive that. And I thought maybe that's what the Christians and Jews will do, but no, it's actually worse. The Christians are even more divided now. I just unsubscribed from a few of my favorite Christian channels just for they don't like the ancient Israelite worldview. They want to stick to the creeds and stuff like that. Um, I'm talking about the Michael Heiser teaching of the divine council worldview. A lot of people don't like that. They don't like to use the word supernatural. They don't like the ancient Israelite worldview compared to the modern day uh, church, American church, like you guys said in Age of Deceit Part 3, when Michael Heiser said the American church, the modern church nowadays, uh, it's almost a point of hypocrisy because, that we believe in the Trinity, we believe in this, that, and the other, you name it, but not the Watchers, or we don't want to hear about the Watchers. We don't want to hear about Genesis 6, and so on and so forth. Okay. Um, I, the church had me read a few months ago First Samuel, was it 12, where it says that the spirit when Saul was being rejected from being king and David was chosen, and they had to send for David to comfort him with the harp. Uh, the scripture says right there, when the harmful spirit of God, when the Holy Spirit of God departed from Saul, the harmful spirit, a harmful spirit from God, came against Saul. That jumped out at me, brother. I was like, what? I didn't know that. And if I ever read that before, which I'm sure I did, I never caught it. So things like that, the modern church. But anyway, yeah, there's a bandwagon that people like to get on. They don't like uh, the. To me, Zionism means the right for Israel to exist, to defend itself, and not get almost exterminated like they did in the Holocaust. And also, to me, Zionism means the biblical Zionism. Okay, the mountain of God and the territory of God and that type of thing. But to other people like Candace and Tucker, it's like Zionism to them means an evil, wicked elite that are trying to take over the world and destroy everything. And it's just like, anyway, another topic is that Canada is now jailing Christians for quoting the Bible when they disagree with the gender ideology. So that's going on. Then you got the 100,000 Christians already slaughtered in Nigeria. People are not talking about that. They're just focused on the anti Israel thing, bandwagon, if you will. And I'm going to cut it off there and I'll let you take over and address these topics, Basil. I want to hear your feedback and the next callers, please. Thank you, Basil.
Sure. Thanks, Roy. Appreciate you calling in, buddy. Yeah, it is quite clear. It's been interesting watching the cycle of things. And again, we started picking this out a few years ago when the sort of seeds of it really started making themselves apparent as far as this movement towards Christianity. More people finding Christianity as the antidote to a lot of the poisons of the secular world that they had been so convinced would fix them. And anybody who's stuck around for long enough or paid attention long enough, these things happen in pretty drastic cycles. And I don't think it's a coincidence that right at sort of the almost a once in a generation, we'll just use revival for the easy word. There's a once in a generation revival in Christendom. A series of events happen between the war in Gaza, between Charlie Kirk, between, even Trump's election there, where they had reached a sort of fever pitch of Christianity making its way into sort of the mainstream, being talked about, and not even just talked about, but applauded. And you have Joe Rogan going to church now, all the biggest names in the biggest media outfits becoming Christian. And I don't think it's any surprise, because this is how the enemy works, that right when that reaches just an incredible peak, that the body is suddenly faced with a total insurmountable obstacle. And that is the issue in this day and age of Israel, Zionism, etc. It's interesting because the talk about biblical Zionism, the talk about biblical Israel or political Israel, this was always kind of a side conversation with a lot of our guests, with a lot of our topics of conversation, and trying to find a way to distinguish and talk about these things that doesn't turn into the absolute chaos that we're in now. I fully believe that the fact that the Israel topic is not only tearing apart this sort of new young generation of Christians or Christianity as a whole, but also the predominant political movement on the right, the conservative political movement in America. And right when both of those things really hit the peak of their power, suddenly this one topic is shaking the whole thing apart. It's like a rocket that made it to space and is now re-entering the atmosphere and is just holding on for dear life. It's shaking and flames are flying everywhere. And the problem has always been talking about biblical Israel and political Israel at the same time, because this is not just a religious debate. I think this is where the mistake, a lot of people into just talking about it, why a lot of people talk past each other, is because you'll have one person referring to sort of biblical Israel or biblical Zionism and talking about it in the context of theology and historicity of the Bible. And then the other side will be talking about it purely politically in modern terms, modern Israel, modern Zionism, even modern American politics in the context of our relationship with Israel. And it's really diabolical just how impossible it is to have a conversation about it. And the much connecting to what I was talking about with podcasting and consensus reality with Sir Psalms when he called in, Sir Psalm 40 rather. Right when, say, podcasting has become a force where people can come together and actually start to share reality with one another, this topic comes in and totally destroys that. It doesn't matter what podcast you're talking about, what community, what shared reality people may have been developing together with thousands of other people on the internet, all at the same time. This issue trying to discern the Israel situation in at least two entirely different categories of thought, one being political and one being religious. And some people might say, hey, religion is political, man. Everything's political. Well, I'm a little skeptical of that because that's what, the far left has been trying to tell us for a long time is everything's political, man. So I think if we are to be living in a supernatural worldview, I think we need to at least consider that perhaps not everything's political. Is that possible? Is it possible that not everything is political? And what does that mean? But that's a very difficult thing to do. Yeah, as far as the even in the atrocities that Roy mentioned before, I mean, the really wackadoodle stuff we have going on in the UK, in Canada, when it comes to Christianity and sort of legal warfare against practicing your Christianity within 20 feet of a school or whatever it is, and UK having its own issues, yeah, and all the way over to, I think it was Nigeria, the Nigerian, some sort of weird civil war going on there where whether it is the targeting of Christians going on, and certainly there's probably some of that, or there's a mix between targeting of Christians and just Christians being present during a historically violent period of time for Africa in general, but Nigeria more specifically. I think what Roy might be alluding to, why isn't anybody talking about this sort of stuff, comes down to the fatigue. I mean, because at some point, when it comes to stuff going on in Canada and the UK, we'll talk about Nigeria in a second. But, as an American paying attention and as an American trying to stay a couple steps ahead of everything going on, because certainly what goes on in UK and Canada is only a stone's throw away from ourselves, to see just the completely wackadoodle posture of the legal system against Christianity and other things is really engaging, because we can imagine it here. We can imagine something going, because we've had similar stuff when Biden was in charge. There was all sorts of crazy little, at least stories of individual court cases, individual prosecutions that were sort of religiously themed or religiously inclined, targeting Christianity. But there comes a time where we go, can we every day burden our very fragile nervous system with what's going on in Canada and UK? And that's coming from me, a guy who constantly stays in touch with what's going on over there, and oftentimes will report on it, have conversations about it. But, when it comes to why isn't anybody talking about this? Why isn't anybody talking about that? I think to a degree, the psychological warfare, the 5th generation warfare, has been so effective and so consistent for so long that it's just not even starting to, it just slips off the mind often. The fatigue is so deep, the fatigue is so real that the energy doesn't even exist to like hold those facts or those events in your mind for a very long time. Especially, as we know, the economic warfare going on. When people got kids to feed and things are getting more expensive and the pink slips start coming and things start getting rough, it is absolutely in our nature to prioritize and not just prioritize our money, not just prioritize our attention, but even just prioritize our emotional capacity. And it is on purpose that, at least in America, we seem to have been systematically been put in this situation where worrying about anything, we have such a small capacity for fretting about, worrying about, learning about, theorizing about anything outside of our immediate survival. And they know this about us. This is social engineering 101. There's decades and decades, almost a century of psychological research that, the powers that be have to be able to bring the public to such a fatigued point that resistance becomes futile. Resistance becomes almost impossible, especially if you're someone who has resisted the pressure to not have children, to not have a romantic relationship, to not find your spouse. If you have all those things, your bucket is so full that sitting and talking about another atrocity in Africa or another absolute abomination of justice in the West, you don't even have the physical ability to stay locked on to that for very long. So I don't necessarily blame anybody for that, especially other podcasters or other people who are trying to facilitate a sort of community where shared reality can be found as objectively as possible. Because to a degree, it has the potential to just sabotage any connection. I mean, God bless. Forget about the Zionism conversation. And for us, it's a little different because we don't have advertisers. The numbers really don't necessarily dictate our survival. at least not in the sort of direct way. And that emotional frenzy that is required to keep people clicking is really part of the detrimental, it's one of the detrimental ingredients to the whole thing. Because I'll tell you what doesn't get clicks is trying to find a non sort of astonishing take on something. Trying to not lean into the emotional aspects of things. Trying not to get fired up or absolutely offended at every single, miscarriage of justice over an ocean away. But in a sense, my hope is that can also be a little healthier, that it can protect us from a little bit of fatigue, that we can continue to share a reality while everything else crumbles around us. That's the hope. Might not work, might not be working. I don't know. But it's what we're going to do. We're in a very special place in that we can do that. Most people can't do that. Candace can't do that. She's on a roll, baby. She can't try to take a breath, try to have some understanding. The whole thing would fall apart if that was the case. So hopefully this means something to somebody. Let's see here. Although Africa, there is some very interesting things going on in Africa. We used to have our Afrofuturism segment on the show, and it might be time for another Afrofuturism segment coming up here. There are some moves being made, and whatever the truth is about the narrative that we're being given about Africa, not just Nigeria, but otherwise. I mean, we are on the precipice of full-on military action in Venezuela. We need to save our strength, folks. We need to save our strength. Because come the new year, it's going to be Venezuela, Venezuela, Venezuela. All right, let's see here. What time is it? 4:48. All right. We might be able to do this. All right, we got a caller in the chat here, or in the back room. I'm going to take this caller, and then we'll land the plane after that, because it looks like I might be able to make it to this rural, local political gathering that I've been asked to attend. So I'm going to do that. We got Sir Darren in the back room here. Sir Darren, what is going up, man? What is going up, man? Yep, muted. Unmute. Can I unmute you? No.
I'm unmuted now.
There
I know what's going up. It's the price of eggs.
It's going up, baby. Get those chickens. I got eggs coming out my ears here.
Should sell them, huh?
I know. If only the government wouldn't come cracking my door for selling illegal eggs.
Yeah. I had a question about, I was noticing, I didn't get to much time to look into it yet, but I saw a story about how one of the larger companies that creates like RAM and like hard drives and so forth, they are going to be, instead of selling them to like consumers for like their gaming computers, are going to be selling them to AI companies now.
Uh-huh.
Like they just aren't even going to be producing them anymore for like the public. But what's interesting is I'm wondering, I know a lot of people are talking about how AI is taking over jobs and everything and whatnot, but I notice a lot of it is, at least for right now, is mostly like the biggest thing that's being taken over is like telemarketer industry, just for like answering calls and whatnot. They're kind of the people being directly affected. And then the second thing is a lot of this AI is like to generate like art or songs. You know, it's just kind of like even like Elon's always touting Grok, because Grok is so amazing. It does this and this, but really, it's just I don't know. It's like really all this computing power and everything that could potentially, you know, be solving all kinds of problems is just being thrown at us to say, hey, make a bunch of fun little pictures and then make those pictures into videos and so forth. And so I'm just wondering if like a lot of this industry just seems to be finding the new thing to like make a quick buck in the
Right.
time being.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's, I'll say I think it's similar to that, but not quite make a quick buck. I think a lot of it is an illusion to get the AI companies far enough along to where it can really get deployed where it's really going to matter, somewhere in the sort of command and control aspects of society. 'Cause yeah, I barely use AI anymore. AI really, ChatGPT, the only good thing it's for is just an easier Google, you know, and you want to make sure to get links on that because it hallucinates so often now. You really can't trust it for anything. I'm finding a lot of people who were using AI or were trying to use AI. Actually, there's just an article in the Atlantic about this too, talking about how the amount of employees who put so much energy into learning AI and applying AI to their jobs is like total rock bottom. Everybody's realized now that, oh, it's not even helping me be more productive. Like, it's so stupid that we're just gonna forget about it. And turns out this is when all the talk about the AI bubble a couple weeks ago started going. And we found those quotes about the real thing with AI, the whole consumer interaction with AI right now is just to like more social engineering than anything. Just put it out there. People use the tools, whatever. They'll be comfortable with AI. You know, they can collect some money. The companies, you know, get some subscription money just to keep the cash flow going. But none of them are making money. ChatGPT is in the hole. They've never made a cent as far as profit goes. But they just need to get far enough to where they can deploy it for command and control, you know, for the data centers, for the power stations, for the government, for the military, etc. I really don't think AI is going to be taking a whole ton of jobs until Optimus. I do think when Optimus comes to a certain level, when the soul of AI can actually live in the body of a robot, I think things will be a little different there. But yeah, I don't think we have to be too worried about. I mean, I'm sure there's jobs where maybe AI is helpful. It's mostly helpful for me to whip up a thumbnail for this show in 4 seconds. So I don't have to go on Photoshop and spend a half hour or something making some stupid little image.
Well,
you know?
there are like some advantages to it. I mean, I remember years ago, I was at a conference maybe it's like 2016, 2017 or something like that. And I actually was learning about all this generative AI that we're using now. They were calling it like by their code names and things.
Yeah.
And so they were showing like, oh, you could put these pictures together and then like make a movie poster and then tell it, oh, what if I change it like this and change it? So they basically were describing all the prompting and everything that we do now.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting, at least from that perspective, that, oh, okay, so they knew about it back then and then they
Totally.
released it to us now. But the one part that is interesting is like what I guess I'm trying to figure out is they're putting so many eggs in this AI basket. And it reminds me of kind of like the whole cloud. Like cloud was like a big buzzword for a long time.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
put it on the cloud. I'm like, that's called the internet, guys. Like,
Yeah.
you never heard of a
Cloud is
server before? Like,
cloud is somebody else's computer. Was the
yeah. And so it was like a big buzzword for a while of just like everything was cloud. And then it's kind of like, oh, you mean so that now basically you mean software as a service is what they were really trying to say.
right.
Right. They weren't wanting to say it that way. They were almost wanting to say a catchy buzzword.
Yeah.
And so AI seems like there's this catchy buzzword of everything is AI. And I'm just seeing like, but why are companies putting like so much into it where, again, it's like it might just come back to bite them in the butt at some point, it seems like.
Yeah, well, like I said, they just need to get to the end game. We're not even in AI end game, and that's kind of the thing. Stalling till the end game. For the most part, in a year or so, I mean, most people will be using AI, but it'll be built into products. Like you won't even really actually know that you're using it in a way. It'll be built in just like the cloud is. Like nobody's really advertising their cloud products now, but pretty much anything you do on any app, you're in the cloud, you're doing cloud stuff, but you're not sitting there going like, oh, let me go into the cloud on my app and upload and woo, I'm in the cloud. It's just a natural kind of like you don't go, oh, let me pick up my touch screen. This one has a touch screen. Ooh, a phone with a touch screen. That was like the 2008 kind of vibe. Everything like, oh, it's a touch. This is like a selling point. So AI in the next couple years will be in everything, but you won't even think about it. You'll be so used to using it. Design has a lot of great applications. I'm sure you're familiar with. But when it really gets when we really get a few years out, 2030, 2033, and suddenly, command and control. AI at its best will be invisible. You will never think about it. You will never see it. You will never look at it, but it will be involved in everything around you. And thankfully, we'll have like crypto UBI sponsored by our favorite corporation, and we'll switch over to some sort of communist crypto economy that we probably won't really think about a lot of things. Thankfully, who even wants a job, Sir Dylan or Darren? Sorry, Darren. Who even wants a job? We just want to have fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, maybe it's kind of like the Facebook. Like Facebook started off, just using a website for hot or not, and look where that evolved to. Basically, but yeah.
I think our worst nightmare about AI is definitely coming true, but it's happening in a way that we won't even know it's happening to us. We won't even see it around us.
Yeah. I just can't believe all these. Every time I see Elon post about how amazing Grok is, I'm just scratching my head.
Little videos and stuff he posts.
Yeah, I'm like, well,
they're
it's
so
just
lame. They're not even
like,
cool.
I thought this guy wants to go to Mars or something. I'm like, what is that going to?
Yeah.
Oh, we can get to Mars with AI if AI can learn to make fun cat videos. Like, it just doesn't equate to me at all.
Yeah, well, we'll just keep in mind, because we know, not a lot of people know, but we know the AI we have access to is like 10 years old. And whatever the AI of the future is probably already, deployed in ways we don't even know. And we won't know until it's too late, because that's how it always happens.
That's one thing I always wonder about, although I always question that. Like, I know we like to say, oh, we don't have the most. Sometimes I wonder though, do we have the most advanced right now? And that's why they're pushing it so hard, because they're kind of like, please beta test this, please make it better. We want it to be amazing.
There's definitely a training aspect to it. That is true. But, it was 2016 when we were reporting on the image generation AI stuff from DeepMind and Google. And, they would show this picture of a dog, and it was like psychedelic and covered in eyeballs. And it was like, a computer imagined this and made it. like, oh my gosh, look, it's a biblically accurate angel. This is like 2016. It was so long ago. It was about 10 years ago. So, you know, if anybody hasn't watched it, I would watch that movie Mountainhead.
I watched that movie.
It's a great movie, especially for people like us, because they obviously, you know, whoever wrote it was like, they're on it. They, you know, you see the ways those guys talk, the timelines they're talking on. I'm not saying anybody's timeline is really perfect, but you know, those with the money and the power, they're working. They have to be optimistic. They're working on very short timelines because that's what gets it to happen ever. You know, they don't work on long timelines. That's over. But it might take a couple more years. But yeah, I don't know. I think as far as work is concerned, got to remember also the elites need us busy. They need us busy. There will never be pure UBI. There will never be no jobs. They will invent jobs. They will have jobs that don't actually need to be done. They will have people be doing things that just gets redone by AI or gets done otherwise. They have to keep everybody working and busy. They have to keep them struggling, because without that, the pitchforks come out. If everybody's sitting around, has all the money they need, or maybe not all of it, but enough to survive, and your job is now to go become personally developed and learn to paint and, you know, write poetry or whatever, never going to happen. There will always be a way they will always keep us right above revolution. That's always the key. Keep them right above revolution and right below any real power. And society as we know it only works if that's the case.
Yep. Oh, and yeah, people should go see that movie. The end of that movie was pretty funny. That was excuse me. That was almost the quintessential what probably elite people are like.
Totally believable
in their real lives.
The total thing is like, I mean, it is like really wackadoodle. All our people, you know, the whole time you'll be like, oh my gosh, oh, they said that, oh, they said that, through the whole thing. And then even at the end when it goes totally off the rails, you're like, this is totally believable. I don't think this is satire at all.
All right. Well, I'll let you get going.
All right, buddy. Great talking to you, Sir Darren. Thanks for calling in, buddy. Talk to you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. There you go, folks. Nothing to worry about. Don't worry. And I'm going to run out the door. I'm going to run out the door and go do that. And if you haven't done it, do it now. Text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. Get on the text message alert system. That's just, you'll get a little text right from me to let you know that we're going live. So you won't have to not get notifications. You can text me back at that number. It's very fun. 406 texted. I just had to read this. Regarding the Trump accounts, okay, from yesterday's show, the Trump accounts, the Social Security for kids. Regarding the Trump accounts, my eldest was born in 2007 and has no Social Security number. I had a second kid in 19 and another in 22, all without SSNs. They all have passports, and the eldest has a driver's license and is on track to go to private Christian college. It can be done. Encouragement for your audience if they're thinking about opting out. That is great news. Thank you, 406. I thought it was impossible, but that gives me a lot of hope. Turns out you can do, you don't have to do that. But do, okay? Everybody obey. Go get your Social Security number. Go pay your tax. Do all the things you're supposed to do, okay? Society will crumble if all you rebels out there, those antisocial rebels, bring us down, okay? So make sure to go do all the correct legal things. But turns out a kid can make it pretty far without a Social Security number. Thank you very much for that text. Okay, I'm going to give you a little taste of this. Here you go. Here's feeding the ducks. All right, everybody. I'm going to scoot. I'm going to go see what these people want from me at the local political thing. If I become mayor, I will let you know. Maybe they just want to ask me what I think about AI. I have no idea. Don't forget to comply, conform, obey, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Canary Cry Clubhouse. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, outside the cage.